When my daughter was fighting for her life, he was toasting champagne under the sun. That image, her pale face under the surgical lights, his laughter echoing across the ocean, has lived in my head like a curse. You think you know pain until you hear the flat tone of a heart monitor and see the man who swore to protect her, raising a glass of golden bubbles, smiling like he'd just won the lottery. That was the moment something inside me broke. Quietly, completely. The hospital smelled like bleach and fear. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead, painting everything in sterile blue. Nurses moved fast, whispering codes I didn't understand. My hands were shaking, but not from age, from helplessness. My daughter's name kept flashing on the digital board above the surgical room door. Status, critical. Meanwhile, across the world, or at least it felt that far, her husband was posting stories from a yacht off the Florida coast. New beginnings, he wrote, under a picture of a champagne bottle bursting open, sunlight bouncing off his sunglasses. I saw it all from the waiting room TV, the local news flashing an ad, a quick glimpse of the same man's face from his company's new partnership celebration. A coincidence, maybe, but the universe has a dark sense of humor. I still remember gripping the chair so hard, the metal bent under my fingers. My girl was in surgery, and he was celebrating his new fortune. They say anger burns hot. They're wrong. The real kind of anger, the kind that changes you, burns cold. It's silent. It's patient. It watches. And I watched. I watched the monitors blink. I watched the doctors rush in and out. I watched the rain smear the glass windows, washing the world clean. Except for me. In that moment, I wasn't thinking about revenge. I was thinking about how easily people move on. How someone can promise forever and mean it only until the next opportunity to profit appears. I wanted to call him, to scream, to ask how he could smile while she was fighting for breath. But I didn't. Because there was something else. Something worse behind that smile. You'll see what I mean. It took me time to understand, to put the pieces together, to realize that his celebration wasn't just cruel. It was planned. When my daughter went into surgery, she thought she had a husband who would wait outside that room with me, praying for her to live. She didn't know that he'd already signed papers that made her death worth more than her life. And when I finally learned that truth, something inside me changed forever. There's one thing I did next, and you won't believe it. People like him think they can bury their sins under money, under yachts, under champagne foam and fake smiles. But money doesn't erase guilt, and it sure as hell doesn't erase me. So listen closely, because what I did wasn't rage. It wasn't madness. It was clarity. And before this story ends, before the final 10 seconds roll in, I promise you something. You'll see a side of justice you've never imagined. The kind that doesn't scream. The kind that waits. The kind that strikes when the world stops watching. Because in those final 10 seconds, the truth will shock you. She was all I had left. After her mother passed, my daughter became the quiet heartbeat of my house. She filled the silence with laughter, turned the dust-covered kitchen into a place that smelled like cinnamon and hope. When I couldn't sleep, she'd sit beside me, pour tea, and talk about her dreams, of a family, of love, of finding a man who would never leave when things got hard. And then he appeared, the perfect American dream wrapped in an expensive suit, handsome, confident, polite, the kind of man who knew exactly how long to hold a handshake. He worked in finance. Investments, he said, and smiled like he'd already mapped out every answer. My daughter's eyes lit up when she was with him. I wanted to believe he was good for her. God knows I wanted to. When they got married, the ceremony was small but beautiful. She walked down the aisle in her mother's dress, sunlight spilling through stained glass like a blessing. He cried, or at least it looked like he did, and whispered, "I'll protect her, sir. Always." For a long time, I clung to that sentence. Years passed, and I watched her world slowly become his. Joint accounts, shared credit cards. Her car, her job, her savings, all filtered through his business management. He said it was to make things easier. She believed him. I tried to. But there was something about his eyes. They never smiled, even when his mouth did. The first time I truly doubted him was the night of her birthday. We were at their house, candles glowing, music low. She had just told him she wanted to take time off work. She'd been exhausted for months. He laughed, leaned in and said, "We can't afford rest right now, baby, not when the market's this good." Then he kissed her forehead like a boss congratulating an employee. I saw it, a flash of irritation in her eyes, gone in a second. That was when I felt it, that small, cold thing twisting in my gut. A few weeks later, she fainted at work. The doctors said it was exhaustion, but her tests showed something worse, a condition that would require expensive treatment. She tried to hide it from me at first, but I knew. I always knew. When I went to visit her, I noticed the pills were unorganized, her bills unpaid. He told me not to worry, that he was handling it. But I saw the way his phone never stopped buzzing, the way he avoided her eyes when she coughed, the way his hand rested protectively, not on her, but on his wallet. And then there was that night. It was raining. I had driven to their house unannounced, bringing her soup like she used to make for me. Through the window, I saw him sitting alone at the table, scrolling through his phone, a half-empty glass of whiskey beside him. He wasn't looking at her. She was asleep on the couch, pale, breathing shallow. He was looking at a message on his screen, one that made his lips curl into something that wasn't quite a smile. It was satisfaction, maybe relief, maybe both. In that moment, I understood something cruel. He wasn't worried about her getting better. He was waiting for her to get worse. I stood there in the rain, my breath fogging the glass, my fingers trembling against the window frame. Part of me wanted to burst in, grab him by the collar, demand the truth. But I didn't. I just watched. Because when a man smiles like that while his wife is dying on the couch behind him, you learn everything you need to know. I wanted to believe he loved her, until the night I saw his smile. The morning she was admitted to the hospital, I remember the sky was the color of steel. No sunrise, no warmth, just the hum of machines and the quiet panic that sits heavy in your chest when you know the world might not give you another day with someone you love. The doctors said she needed immediate surgery, that her heart couldn't take much more. I told them to do whatever it took. "Don't worry about the cost," I said. "Her husband handles all the finances." They nodded. But hours later, one of the billing officers called me into her office. Her tone was clinical, careful, like she was about to tell me the weather. "Sir, the insurance claim was denied. The account linked to her policy is empty." Empty. I stared at her, not understanding at first. My daughter had always been responsible, meticulous. She balanced her books down to the cent. "How is that possible?" I asked. She hesitated. "It appears the funds were withdrawn 3 days ago by her spouse." The word spouse hit like a nail through the chest. When I called him, his voice was calm. Too calm. "Oh yeah," he said. "I had to move some money around. Investments, taxes. You know how it is. Don't worry, I'll fix it." But he didn't sound like a man worried about his wife. He sounded like a man irritated about an inconvenience. That night, I barely slept. The hospital lights bled through the blinds like ghosts. I sat there watching her breathe, counting the beeps of the monitor. Every sound reminded me she was still alive, and every second reminded me how easily he could let her die. By the next morning, I couldn't take it anymore. I drove straight to the insurance company myself. The woman at the front desk recognized me from the hospital. She looked nervous. "Mr. Harris, I'm afraid we can't discuss your daughter's file without authorization. I slid my ID across the counter, voice trembling. I'm not asking, I'm begging. She looked around, leaned in, and after a long pause whispered, "There's something you should see." She led me into a small back office, away from the cameras. The room smelled like paper and toner. She handed me a printed email chain. The header said, "Request to transfer beneficiary. Urgent." The sender's name was his. The date, 1 week before my daughter was hospitalized. I scanned the message, my heart pounding in my throat. Please expedite this process. My wife is undergoing treatment, and it's only logical for me to be the primary beneficiary in case of unexpected outcomes. I'll cover the additional fee. Unexpected outcomes. He had written those words like a business transaction, like her life was a line item on a spreadsheet. My hands began to shake. The paper crumpled between my fingers. He bet on her death, I whispered. He actually bet on it. The clerk's eyes filled with pity. I'm sorry, sir. We shouldn't even be showing you this. I walked out without another word, the wind slicing through me like glass. I didn't feel my hands on the steering wheel. I didn't feel the cold. All I felt was the sound, the hollow echo of my heartbeat, and the image of that email burned into my mind. When I reached the hospital, I found him in the waiting area, typing on his phone. He looked up at me, annoyed. You look terrible, old man. Go home. I've got this handled. I stared at him, at the man who once promised to protect my daughter. And in that moment, I saw it clear as day. The arrogance, the greed, the vacancy in his eyes. He wasn't just ready for her to die. He was counting on it. I sat beside my daughter's bed later that night. Her skin was pale, her breathing shallow. I whispered to her, hoping she could still hear me. You married a man who thinks your death is worth more than your life. But I promise you, sweetheart, he'll pay for every breath he ever took from you. The monitors beeped softly, steady but fragile. And for the first time in my life, I felt something colder than grief, something sharper. I didn't know what it was then, but now I do. That was the night I stopped being a father and started becoming something else. The night after I saw that email, I couldn't breathe. The walls of the hospital felt smaller, tighter, like the air itself was choking me. Every beep of the heart monitor drilled deeper into my skull. My daughter was still fighting, clinging to life through tubes and wires, and the man who should have been at her side was nowhere to be found. I hadn't seen him for 2 days. His excuses came through text messages, meetings, travel, important investors. He said he was handling things. But my gut, that old stubborn instinct you earn from decades of reading men, told me he was celebrating. And I was right. That morning, as I sat in the dim hospital cafeteria, I opened my phone. Her husband's social media profile lit up my screen. The latest post hit me like a hammer. A yacht slicing through the ocean. Champagne flying mid-air. His arm around a woman half his age, both of them grinning like the world was theirs. The caption read, "New beginnings." For a moment, I couldn't move. I stared until my vision blurred, the image melting into colours of betrayal. Then the rage came, slow and suffocating. The phone slipped from my hand, hit the floor, and shattered. I didn't even notice. I buried my face in my hands. I wanted to scream, to break something, to make the pain match the violence inside my chest. But instead, I sat there, silent, shaking. And when I finally looked up, the anger was gone. What replaced it was colder, a kind of calm that doesn't come from forgiveness, but from purpose. That night, I started digging. I wasn't a tech genius, but I knew where people leave their fingerprints, in transactions, in emails, in the arrogance of thinking no one's watching. I remembered an old friend of mine, Tom Callahan, a retired financial crimes investigator who owed me a favor. Tom met me in a diner outside town, the kind of place that never closed and never asked questions. His face aged rough, like sandpaper and regret. "What's this about, John?" he asked, sipping black coffee. "It's about my daughter," I said, "and the man she married." He listened as I told him everything. The empty accounts, the insurance transfer, the yacht. When I finished, he didn't say anything for a long time. Then he nodded once. "I'll look into it." 3 days later, Tom called. His voice was low. "You were right to come to me. The bastard cashed out her life insurance fund early, under a terminal illness clause. He claimed he needed the money to prepare for end-of-life care." I gripped the phone tighter. "He withdrew it before she died?" "Yep, all of it. $500,000 wired offshore." The world tilted. For a moment, the sounds around me, traffic, chatter, the wind, disappeared. All I could hear was my pulse, slow and steady like a ticking bomb. But Tom wasn't done. "There's more," he said. "He contacted a private physician last week, offered him money to sign a release, to pull life support if she doesn't respond soon." I froze. What?" Tom sighed. "The doctor didn't take the bribe. He reported it to a colleague, but no one wants to get involved. Your son-in-law's got connections." That was it. The last line. The final thread holding me together snapped. He wasn't just waiting for her to die. He was trying to make it happen. I went back to the hospital that night. The hallways were empty, the lights dimmed to save power. I sat beside her bed, brushing her hair off her face. She looked peaceful, like she was sleeping, but every breath was a struggle. "I'm sorry, sweetheart," I whispered. "I should have seen who he was sooner." Her hand twitched slightly. Maybe a reflex, maybe something more. It didn't matter. I took it as a sign. That was the moment I made my promise. I wasn't going to shout. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to make him choke on every lie, every dollar, every smile he ever used to fool her. When I left the hospital, I didn't feel like the same man. I called Tom again. "Help me build a case," I said. Quietly. He hesitated. "John, you're talking about walking a thin line." I looked up at the sky, the same colourless void as the day she went under the knife. "I've been walking that line since the day he married her," I said. "Now it's time to cross it." And that's how it started. Not with shouting or blood, but with silence and a plan. Because I wasn't just her father anymore. I was the storm coming for him. It took weeks of silence before he finally answered my call. He sounded surprised to hear my voice, but not guilty. That's the thing about men like him. They never believe they'll have to pay. "John, you okay, old man? You sound different." "I am," I said. "I just wanted to talk. One last time." There was a pause, the kind that tastes like calculation. He cleared his throat. "Sure. About what?" I let the air hang heavy before answering. "About saying goodbye." He agreed to meet that evening. Maybe curiosity, maybe arrogance. I didn't care. All I knew was that when he stepped into my house again, it would be the last time he'd walk in as a free man. I spent the afternoon preparing everything. The old whiskey glasses, the framed wedding photo of him and my daughter, the folder that would decide his fate. Tom, my old friend, the retired investigator, sat in the kitchen, quietly checking over the papers one last time. He'd made sure every document was real enough to fool a lawyer, fake enough to end a liar. "They look perfect," he said, adjusting his glasses. "If he signs this, you've got him by the throat." I nodded, staring at my own reflection in the dark window. "Then let's finish it." He arrived right on time, wearing that same smug smile, expensive watch, tailored suit, a faint scent of cologne that made my stomach turn. "Didn't think I'd hear from you again," he said, glancing around the room like he owned it. "Nice place. Bit old, though." I gestured to the chair. "Sit. Have a drink. It's her favourite. You remember?" He smirked, Taking the glass, I poured for him. To new beginnings, right? To endings, I corrected softly. He laughed, thinking it was a joke. I slid the folder across the table. These are her assets. She wanted me to make sure they went to the right hands if anything happened. I'm old-fashioned, so I'd rather handle it face to face. His eyes gleamed. You mean the life insurance money? I didn't answer. I just looked at him, expressionless. He flipped through the papers, the soft rustle of the pages cutting through the silence. Looks clean, he said. Guess it's all coming full circle, huh? He took the pen, signed his name, big, confident, looping letters, the kind of signature a man uses when he's sure of his own power. When he handed the folder back, I let my hand linger on it, feeling the weight of the moment. Then I smiled, not kindly, not warmly, but with the quiet satisfaction of a man who's already seen the ending. As he got up to leave, Tom stepped out from the hallway, pretending to be surprised. Evening, he said smoothly, extending a hand. I'm just here as a witness, Mr. Harris. Standard procedure, you know. My son-in-law shook his hand carelessly, too distracted to notice the small badge chain tucked just inside Tom's jacket. He left with a confident wave. Pleasure doing business, old man. I'll make sure she's remembered. The door closed. The sound echoed through the house like the click of a trigger. I stood there for a long moment, staring at that door, then turned to Tom. It's done. Tom nodded grimly. You sure you want to go through with the rest? I'm sure, I said. Men like him only understand consequences when they're public. He gave me a knowing look. Then you better be ready for what comes next. It didn't take long. By morning, the news broke. Financial advisor under investigation for insurance fraud and forgery. The signature he'd written so proudly had been traced, directly to documents he wasn't supposed to possess. The trap had snapped shut. The police came for him at his office. Cameras caught everything, the disbelief, the anger, the moment his perfect smile cracked. Tom called me after the arrest. You really did it, John. The papers, the recordings. He's finished. I hung up, staring out the window where the rain had just started to fall. Then, headlights flickered in the driveway. My gut tightened. A car door slammed. Heavy footsteps approached. He'd posted bail. The front door creaked open before I could reach it. He stepped inside, face pale, eyes burning. You set me up, he hissed. I didn't move. You did that yourself. He took a step closer. You think this ends me? I'll get everything back. I always do. Behind him, red and blue lights flashed again. Faster this time. Closer. He turned too late. Officers stormed in. Tom followed, flashing his badge. You're under arrest. Again. This time for witness intimidation. As they dragged him out, he glared at me. You'll regret this, old man. I walked to the doorway, my face calm. Maybe, I said quietly, but you'll regret it longer. The door slammed shut. The sirens faded into the distance. I looked down at the untouched whiskey glass still on the table, his fingerprints clear against the crystal. And for the first time in years, I felt something close to peace. Cold. Heavy. But peace, nonetheless. The news spread faster than I expected. Headlines flashed across every screen, every phone, every whisper in town. Wealthy businessman exposed by his dying wife's father. They called him the man who gambled on love and lost everything. Reporters camped outside his gated house, shouting questions as he was led away in handcuffs. Cameras zoomed in on his face, the face that once smiled through every lie, now drained of its perfect confidence. His company dropped him within hours. His accounts were frozen. The friends who once toasted champagne with him pretended not to know his name. And me? They called me a hero, a retired widower who uncovered the truth, the father who fought for justice when no one else would. The local papers ran my photo next to hers, the proud dad, the devoted daughter. People sent letters, flowers, handshakes. But every time someone said, "You did the right thing," something inside me twisted. Because I knew what they didn't. Justice wasn't what I wanted that night. I wanted blood. And even though I didn't pull a trigger, even though I used the law instead of my hands, what I did came from the same dark place. A week after his arrest, I went through her belongings for the first time. Her favorite sweater, a half-finished letter on her nightstand, the faint smell of lavender still on her pillow. Then I found the envelope. It was tucked inside a book, the one I used to read to her when she was little, The Old Man and the Sea. The handwriting stopped me cold. For Dad, only if I don't come home. My fingers trembled as I opened it. Dad, I know how much you love me. I know what anger can do to you. If something happens to me, please, promise me you won't hurt him. I want peace, not war. Let it end with me. I sat there for a long time, unable to breathe. The paper blurred through my tears. She knew. Somehow she always knew. And I'd broken that promise before I ever read it. Later that night, I went to the hospital one last time. The room was empty now, stripped of machines and noise. I sat in the same chair, letter in hand. I kept my promise to protect you, I whispered, voice cracking. But not the way you wanted. Outside, the reporters were still talking, the world still spinning, hungry for another story of revenge and justice. But in that room, it was just me, the silence, and the faint smell of lavender. I'd won. He'd lost. And somehow, neither of us had peace. The cemetery was quiet except for the wind whispering through the trees. The sky burned with the colors of a dying sun, gold fading into blood red, like the world itself was saying goodbye. I walked slowly between the graves, the letter still folded in my pocket. In my other hand, I carried a bottle, the same brand of champagne he'd used to celebrate while she fought for her life. Only this one was empty. I knelt beside her headstone, the marble cool beneath my fingertips. Her name was carved in silver, simple and beautiful, just like her. I thought I was giving you justice, I said quietly. But maybe I just gave myself something to live for when you were gone. I placed the empty bottle on her grave. The glass caught the last light of the sunset, one final glimmer before darkness took it. For a long moment, I just stood there, listening to the silence, feeling the weight of everything I'd done. My voice cracked through the still air. Justice or revenge, maybe there's no difference. The screen fades to black. A final whisper echoes. Would you have done the same?